All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rolling With It podcast. Today, my guest is Leila Khan. Leila works with ambitious, soul-led leaders to magnetize success with ease so that they can inspire and impact others, make money, and change the world without feeling disempowered or stuck. She's also written a couple of books, 100 Ways to Overcome Life's Biggest Obstacles, and My Little Red Book of Wisdom. And you got a couple of other things here too that I saw, little like Instagram books and stuff like that. So I kind of want to start with your writing. Where did these books come from, and touch a
Uh,
little bit on these other two books that you got.
yeah, so I love writing. I always have done. I think I think for some people, they just know, right? They know they've got a book in them. They're just gonna, at some point, they're gonna get it out of their system. That's kind of how I describe it. You're getting it out of your system and you're sharing your book. And so, 101 Plus ways, like even my publisher forgets the plus as well. So 101 Plus
Right.
ways is essentially I wrote this as my life story, but in a way which was empowering for the reader, so they could work through their stuff as well. So it was a different format. And in My Little Red Book of Wisdoms, I wrote that when I was 12, and
Wow.
it was just like it was like a real comfort to me because there was so many things that I've been through in my life. Up to that point as well, it was absolutely crazy, and I just started to write these little words of wisdom, which I call Layla's Wise Vibes. And, this little book just kept me in so much comfort, because these were words from spirit, words from my soul coming through as guidance to help me move through whatever was going on in my life. And so I wrote My Little Red Book of Wisdoms, and I kept it in a little red book. And my friends would be like, "Oh, can I borrow that little red book? Because it's really inspirational." And I'd be like, "Okay, make sure you give it back because at some point I'm going to publish this book."
Right.
I wasn't
That's
attached to
amazing.
it, I was like,
Right.
you know. So I ended up self-publishing it about 8 years ago. I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, as my first book through my business, to really just kind of make that dream come true, but also to use it as a tool for authority as well. And then it's just kind of led off to all these other little books and all this other writing and my daily soul messages, which I share on my social media and so on. So it's just getting it out of my system, unleashing the spirit within, and just sharing from my own heart and soul, and hoping it's going to resonate with the right people.
That's beautiful. I mean, it sounds like all these things that you've written have all been kind of like these little snippets or summaries and stuff, kind of like daily affirmations and things like that came to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing, like when we're going through stuff, um, we don't we don't always want to look outside of ourselves for the answers, because the answers are within. And there were
Hmm.
many times where, I didn't have my family around, my parents weren't around, partners weren't around, and I really had to figure out, how do I get through this situation? How do I get through this moment as I'm on my own? And the amazing thing is that we're never alone. We've always got our soul, our spirit with us. We've always got God with us. The universe is
Hmm.
always with us. And I call them my angel crew. So,
Right, like us, our spiritual team, right? Like,
yes, exactly, exactly. We've got a spiritual team, right? And
yeah.
so I just really relied on that connection, that deep, deep connection within, um, to get through life. And the way that these words came through, they sound like affirmations. They're very powerful, potent, and clear to the point words, and guidance. And I've kind of always just shared that naturally, just in conversation. And I've
Hmm.
seen it kind of on paper in books, in my books, or seeing it online. It's really powerful. It's quite like, wow, okay, this has come through me, and I can't remember writing it. So what was the lesson again?
Right. No, that's it's awesome. For me, I guess in the struggles I went through, I totally relate with. Yet I had to go outside of myself. There were so many people that couldn't relate to my situation, so there was a lot of that, like getting kind of those downloads and stuff. But I didn't think to write them, you know, and I think I tend to write more like long form. So whatever, like it's like I almost got to like tone it down or something. So I like that I love those books when you have those kind of nuggets of information at a time, just to, and those are great books also to kind of just, tune into the energy. What's my message for the day kind of thing, open it up and be like, it's aligned. It's so perfect. Those are the best books. So I think that's really cool that's kind of like your forte.
I love that you said that, because that's exactly how I use My Little Red Book of Wisdoms, like the original. And I would just open it to a page and I was like, wow, okay, this message actually really resonates or really lands. And I just did that throughout. I would do the same with my Quran as well. I'd open it and, a particular verse would be the one that I landed on. It's like, oh my gosh, of all of the words that I could have read in this book, I've landed on this. And then I would do it as a test with other books on my bookshelf, or magazines, or whatever it was around me. I'd be like, let me just try this, let me see if there's a message that's actually going to land for me and see what happens. And that just used to be my game. So I love that you said that, because in 101 Plus Ways, in the introduction, I encourage the reader to use the book as like a dip in, dip out, and open it to where it lands, and that's going to be your synchronicity. That's going to be the message that that your soul is guiding you to kind of sit with. So yeah, I love that you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when I think about. I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
In playing with these kind of books and stuff, and or even magazines, just like wanting to get my message, just kind of experiment with the universe kind of thing. And then like it's also kind of the same ways of like the tarot cards or the angel cards and like all that stuff. And I don't know, when I first was understanding that, like how you could get these messages, it's like your energy is getting in tune with the cards, and it's revealing the answer or the pages. And I was like it always kind of blew me away. I was like, wait a minute, like I'm just putting it's just tuning into the energy, and then the right thing is coming out. Like, how does this work? And but I think once you really start trusting in these messages, it's when you really, it helps you kind of like build faith.
Yeah.
To really go on this journey, right, of spirituality and trusting the unknown and things like that.
Definitely. And I think it's also as well, like, a great way to look at it is, it could have been any page, it could have been any message, or it could have been any country, or it could have been any song. Why that one? There's got to be a reason why, isn't it? And that's what I mean about the game. It's like, okay, it could have literally been anything, but it had to be that. So then I kind of see it in your book. I'm still reading your book, but in your book you mentioned about breadcrumbs, and it's that, isn't it? It's like messages like this, so like the breadcrumbs, and leading on to the next thing and the next thing, and then through that you build up trust, and you trust that you're being guided, you trust that you're being led. You surrender into that space of, okay, I'm not on my own, and I don't have to figure this out myself, and I can, just trust a little deeper and believe that these breadcrumbs are leading me to where I'm meant to be. I'm being right here, right now, but where exactly I'm meant to be for the bigger picture.
And following the breadcrumbs has been, once you are like on that journey, it's just you can't go back, because the more and more you follow these breadcrumbs, you're being led to kind of amazing, it leads you to things that you want, but they're also like kind of beyond your expectation.
Yeah.
And so life kind of turns into this adventure, right? Where, where am I being led next? And I also find that, there's so many people that can't live this way or just have never lived this way. And they get, whether it's like they're in the same job or they just live in a lot of certainty.
Yeah.
And and so, getting caught up in that, like, it's that's people living in a certain way of life and certainty over and over again is going to be unfulfillment. Like this, I feel like falling into learning how to live kind of the spiritual path, following the synchronicities and the breadcrumbs, is really leading you to like your highest happinesses and your biggest fulfillments. But it takes coming out of yourself, uncovering your pains and traumas, and stepping into the unknown and all this stuff. Which a lot of people are afraid of. So I wonder what, you're a coach and you've probably dealt with a lot of people that come into this kind of a space. How do you help navigate them?
Well, it's really funny because a couple of years ago, I was in this space where I kind of stopped following the breadcrumbs. I kind of started to lose trust and faith because I started to look outside of myself. I actually started to look out to social media for my signs. But I would be on social media like asking my crew for the signs, right? But I would go through so many different posts. You know how it is on Instagram, you scroll. It's like, oh, is that a sign? Oh, is that a sign? To the point where I just exhausted myself.
Right.
I was like, oh, you just calm down, woman. The signs will come. Well, then what happened was I started to get really bored. That unfulfillment that you were talking about. I was just like, I'm really bored. Like, I'm not following my soul nudges, which for me, I'm very active, and I'm meant to be a traveler. I'm an explorer. I'm an alchemist. I'm meant to be out there living life, traveling, sharing my light in different places, not just like in my house. And I realized that I got really bored, really bored. So to come back to your question, what I started to do is I started to really tap back into that exploration and that adventure and the magic and the wonder. When you listen to your heart and when you connect to God and when you listen to your intuition and you call it forward, you call the guidance forward, that's when things really started to shift again. And for me at the moment, we're going through rebranding with my business, and just what I'm sharing on social media. And there's been great feedback. It's really positive feedback. A lot of people are resonating with what I'm putting out there. And what they're really resonating with is the fact that I've come back into my heart and soul, and I've come back to communication, deep communication, constantly all day long. What is spirit like leading me to? What is spirit guiding me to? Where am I meant to go? What am I meant to say? What am I meant to do? And looking at life as this adventure of infinite potential. So when it comes to my clients, I'm like, come on, expand the vision, expand your mindset, expand the possibilities. Let's play the game of what if this magical thing happens? What if that magical thing happens? I wonder what is in store for me next. I wonder if I say create that masterclass, what's going to happen? Or, who's going to come into my world? Or, I wonder if you believe that you can manifest 20k in less than 10 weeks. What if we collapse time and you do it in 5 weeks? Right. That kind of thing. It's like, it's the adventure. And I actually think that's what people want. They don't want to be they don't want to be stimulated by what's kind of online, because it's not personal, it's not heart centered, it's just a screen. And really what people want is to connect to their own heartbeat, which is what I teach. Just connect to your own heartbeat, because that is where your magic is, that's where your magic lives. But it's also I kind of see it as like a golden cord that just comes out from your heart, and this beautiful silk thread, you could say, and it's connected to your destiny. It's connected to all of the pieces that make up your life, and it starts from your heartbeat.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. I like that you touched on, when you got caught up with the synchronicities and you were like, is this a sign? Is this a sign? I was totally, after a while, when you start seeing it so many times, you get really caught up and expecting it, right? And so I also had to like tone that down for a bit, because it was just like looking at every number and everything that like I would see. And you kind of get in. I mean, in that space, I guess you've lost the moment,
Yeah.
and you're coming back into being here right now, being in the moment. And once you're in that, connected to your heartbeat, then that's really the space where we get downloads and guidance, and all the intuitive magic that happens. And I mean, everything that you said right now was, what I got was, it's really about looking at all of this as play. Like looking at life as like we're having fun.
Yeah.
And we get like money and all these things like tend to be like, there's a lot of stress behind them, so it's hard for in a lot of cases, to what if I don't make my bills or whatever. But what if you, but just turning it the other way around, what if you can collapse time and make 20K in 5 weeks or whatever?
Yeah.
And just playing with the universe that way. And I think what I like to look at life as like we're like in this 4D virtual reality game. We're here, right? Because we're locked in with our senses, and our senses are just perceiving like the third dimension. And so what we see, what we feel, what we taste, smell, all these things, we limit ourselves to that reality. And when we're really opening up, right? Because that reality, or like focusing on whatever we're perceiving with our senses, is more about being logical and like analyzing a lot of things using our left brain. If we tune more into the moment, connect to our heartbeat, get those downloads, and really you're tapping into other dimensions when you do that, because you're getting this kind of guidance. How do you feel about this being a virtual reality game?
Do you know what? So I do. I'm a bit of a maverick, and I love like thinking outside of the box, and where life can be really serious, and where the experiences that we go through to experience, we can get caught up, right? We can get caught up in the story and the pain and the trauma and the challenges and so on. And what I found is that there is play in that, and playfulness, which is actually very feminine energy, is like, it kind of brings you back into the present moment, and it brings you back into this space of this experience is happening outside of me for me to grow, and I don't, and actually I can't grow if I'm so attached or associated with the pain, and so for me, I've always found that no matter how awful the traumas or the challenges are that I've been going through or that I've experienced in life, when I bring like playfulness and a game into it all, and a challenge of like, let me see how this unfolds if I choose not to buy into the 3D belief that this awful thing has happened, so now you're doomed. I'm like, maybe I'm not doomed. Maybe there's some magic in this, And
like, let's see where this is leading me.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see if the wisdom that comes through is actually really playful and magical and beautiful and easy. Because here's the thing as well, like when we're going through something challenging, in many ways it's expected that we should be stressed and scared and worried and think, that's how life is going to be, and that situation's never going to change. And that's not the way it is. The way that I see it is, we have divine assignments and divine missions, and we have soul contracts with people that, you know, we meet. And those soul contracts and those situations may not be pretty. They may be incredibly uncomfortable and painful. And those teachers, those people are still our teachers. And if we can extricate the lessons and the wisdom and the guidance and the growth and if we can still keep the magic, you know, the magic of the game, this thing called life, then we've moved through that divine mission or that divine assignment, and we've come out of it on the other side, kind of like the alchemist with a sack of gold, you know,
Right. Yeah.
on their back. And it's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's like, there you go. I've got what I came for in terms of like my heart and soul lessons and wisdom, and now it's kind of on to the next thing. But it's all a game. It's all just fun, and you know, like along the way, you're gonna meet people who will energetically balance out the pain and the trauma. You know, the challenging times, you'll come across people who help you to balance that energy so that you can continue to elevate, so that you can continue to just move up and not be dragged down, you know. And I think there's real power in that this thing called life is a game, and it's not as serious as we all think it is. And it's also a choice. It's a choice. That's really, really key.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
Right. To play it that way.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, everything you said, it just reminds me of my own journey.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, having my accident, and you know, really kind of being short-sighted for a while, and then finally realizing like this, like starting to looking at the situation as happening for me, not to me, and really, you know, seeing the gift that like came from it. And you know, fast forward now, I'm almost like 15 years since my accident, but like there's no way I would regret it, because it's led me on such a journey that like there's no way I would have been on otherwise. And I totally relate with, like, as you're kind of on this spiritual journey, you know, you keep up leveling and connecting with new people, and that support your growth, and it just keeps getting, like, you know, it just really just keeps getting more magical and more, like, you know, because it always surprises you. Like, I find myself sometimes in situations where, like, I am nervous, or there's some fear showing up, and I don't know how certain things are going to go, and I know not to give in to the fear, but it's there.
Yeah.
Right. And so you know, you eventually move through it, and then something happens, and it's like, it comes from left field. It comes from this, you know what I mean? And wait a minute, all this thing that I was worrying about, now this person just came into my life, and, you know, and my answers are, you know, answered. And,
yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the framework, you know what I mean, for manifestation and things like that.
You have to keep showing up, isn't it? Like, no matter what happens, we just have to just keep showing up, because otherwise we do fall into that stagnancy. You know, we do fall into that unfulfillment. And I don't know, I just think being human, or being a spiritual being and having this human experience, there is a lot of magic to it. You know, we keep getting to make new choices and new decisions, and if we don't, then that fulfillment it's always going to kind of feel out of reach, you know. And we're here for growth. You know, I talk about forever soul growth, and this thing called life is a journey of our forever soul growth. And you know, my background's in teaching, and you know, I stand in front of my students and I'm like, you guys have so much potential, you know, to like to do whatever it is that you want to do, to become the best that you can possibly ever become. And there is so much within you that is still hidden, right? We've not even tapped into it. We've not even scratched the surface. And, you know, I stand in front of my students and with my clients as well, and I'm just like, tap into that. Be willing to write the book. Be willing to start the business. Be willing to decide you're going to manifest, 1 million in 12 months. Be willing
Right.
to manifest, your true love. Be willing to do the thing that you really want to do, that is in your heart and soul, that you can just feel it in you, and just see
Mm-hmm.
where it leads. Because you're always going to get what you choose. You're always going to get what you decide. And so
Right.
for me, I'm like, why would I want to live this life without having tapped into my fullest potential? Like, why would I want to do that? And when
There's
we
no settling.
no settling, exactly, no settling. Like, when we tap into that, that's a life well lived. Like, I think with yourself as well, myself, we've both had those experiences where death has been there, just right in front of us. And those moments, like, I've actually been contemplating this quite a bit recently, and I'm still actually going through this recontemplation process of my my journey with death and dying, and how it's actually the thing that inspires me to live, every single day. And there's just something about it. Like, what I think when you've touched it, or tapped into, or come close to this feeling of, okay, I might not be here in the next minute, I might not be here in the next second, you make choices very differently. You use your energy differently. You make different decisions. Your dedication and your devotion is different. You move different. You just move different, isn't it?
It's like the sense of, like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do right now. Like, I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And when you've had a situation that's made you question if you have really been living the life that you wanted to live. And when you're met with a situation like that, and then really going forward with, like, I'm not settling. And it's once you've kind of, like, tasted the alchemization of these experiences and stuff, it's just a game changer. I think a lot of people, they kind of just get stuck, especially now, right? With, like, there's, like, COVID, and vaccines, and there's a lot of divisiveness, and kind of people just being, like, run by fear. I've noticed just with family, and, like, even just, like, other people, how much, like, they've limited themselves from actually living because of all of the things that are being portrayed.
Completely agree with you. Yeah, and it's really, on one level you can perceive it as being really scary, and there's times when I'm just like, I look around and I'm thinking, what 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 is going on? Like, what happened? And I think that divisiveness, of course, we know is an implant. It's a program. It's something which has been played upon, and it's constantly used as a tool to divide and conquer. And it comes back to, like, we could only ever be affected by all of that if we choose to look outside of ourselves for answers and for guidance and for decision making. And so when we choose to just come back to what is right and true for me, what is my body telling me, what is my heart and soul guiding me to, what is the decision that right now is the best decision, knowing what the consequences are as well, because there are consequences. Like,
Right.
there are absolutely consequences, and it's not just a basic consequence of, oh, I might just get a paralyzed arm. It's like there's energetic consequences, there's karmic consequences.
There's a whole domino effect.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a domino effect that I know I don't want to get involved in. You know, it's like,
Right. Yeah.
it's like, I've already been playing dominoes my whole life. It's like, I'm tired. We just want to play and have fun now, you know?
Yeah, I'm totally with that. And I think because we've gone through our own journeys before this time happened. I mean, it definitely, especially in the beginning, it did bring a lot up, but because I've kind of been on this journey, it's like, all right, I'm going within. Where
Yes,
do I go? And it's
yes.
like I, automatically knew that this is the way to go. And I think a lot of, and regardless of the divisiveness, I do think we're in a sacred time
Yes.
of change, and a lot of people. It's just interesting. There's a lot of people that are on social media now, selling, becoming coaches and selling themselves in different ways, and really just kind of coming into their own, speaking their truth, and things like that. I feel like has come out more and more in this experience. And you work with coaches and you work with people to help them, you know, was it maximize their life really,
Yes.
and their earnings and stuff. So I'm guessing that you've probably come across a lot of people during this time that are stepping into their power and
Yeah.
coming onto social media.
Definitely, definitely. And there's a lot of with my clients and my students, what they're wanting to do is use their voice, or even like find their voice, and have
Hmm.
confidence in that. And I think that actually because of this experience, because this whole experience, everything that's going on in the world at the moment is a mind thing. It's
Mm.
in the mind. It's all thoughts, and we know that thoughts are electric, and feelings and emotions are magnetic. And
Hmm.
I think that's where all this stress and anxiety energetically it just kind of builds this crazy electric field, which is imbalanced. And what I'm finding is that a lot of my clients are wanting to come back into their body. They're wanting to come back into
Hmm.
their heart. They're wanting to come back to this place within them that feels like peace. And so they're wanting to be less in their mind when the mind is just crazy, when there's just like all of these thoughts going on all the time, and you know all this information, all these opinions, all these stories, most of it external. And what they're wanting to do is
Hmm.
to really come back to their own voice, their inner voice, as well as their external voice, like how they use their message, and connect to who they really are, and speak their truth. I think it's really powerful. Like you're saying, it's such an amazing time to be alive,
Hmm.
and I think I just think there's a lot of, I know I've said it before, but there's just a lot of magic in the air when we choose to see it
Hmm.
that way, you know,
A
and
lot of potential.
yeah, a lot of potential. And have you noticed as well how it's all been kind of percolating for the past year, and people are starting to well, not just question things, they're starting to take action in new
Hmm.
ways, and they're wanting to be braver and courageous, and actually connect to their own spirituality. Like, are you finding that with the people you're coming into in your world and so on?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think I think this really is like the Great Awakening, and
Mm.
you know maybe being forced to stay home for like such amount of time, and with the level of uncertainty, maybe even more so, that's been played on with when is this going to end, or is it going
Mm.
to end, or where do you go from here, or people's businesses closing, and it just causes you to, one, after you kind of dealt with your grief or your anger or whatever that kind of came up with that, I think it's a natural kind of progression of like, okay, like, what do we do now? Now you're a bit lighter, right? You've moved through some emotion, and so and I think that's why this is all happening, because on a grander perspective, where
Mm.
it's everybody is going through a transformation at once,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I've seen that more and more, and some of the people that come to me to become clients and stuff, it just seems like that's what they're looking for. They're like, they're sick of being in their head. They want to know how, right? Like, and so yeah, absolutely. You've been you've been a coach for a while, right? Like
Mm.
you've been a coach for like what, 5+ years,
Oh
something like that?
yeah, yeah. For about so the way that I describe it is that I've actually always been a teacher. So I knew that I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be a teacher when I was like 6 years old and fell in love with French at 9. And I
Mm.
honestly never left school. Like I would volunteer and I would mentor and I would always go to school even when I had my
Wow,
job.
I was the opposite.
You like, get me out of here, high
I was
school.
like, I'm done.
I know, I was such a geek.
That's
Um,
so funny.
and one of the skills that teachers have is to coach, what we do. And I teach
Mm-hmm.
French. So one of the things is, like most people are like, I hate French. I don't like French. It's too hard. My job was
Mm.
like, oh my God, I love French. Let me make this easy for you and I'll show you how. And that's exactly the same principle with coaching. Of coaching is, where is your person right now, where do they want to go, and then you bridge the gap and you show them the way and you teach them the path or whatever it might be. So yeah, I've always actually been a coach, but kind of publicly with my business. So
Mm.
that's what I do now as well. Yeah.
And what brought you into coaching? So what was the
Yes.
switch from being a French teacher to this work that you do now?
Yeah, great question. So I'm sure people can tell. You can tell I'm very ambitious, very driven. Like kind of
Right.
unstoppable.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
More power to
Thank
you.
you, thank you. And I've always been like this. And so when I actually started teaching, within 2.5 years, I went from new teacher to assistant head and just like blasted through just all of it. I was like, I
Mm.
know where I'm going. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm here to do and how I'm here to impact. Um, and so what actually happened for me was, I knew that senior management wasn't actually for me. I knew that being in an office, and paperwork and admin was not for me. And I took on this role. I did my absolute best, and I was like, my heart just kept yearning for the classroom, for connection, for communication, for banter, personality, chats, and all of that.
Mm.
And I had actually just had enough of kind of being told that there's a ceiling and that because I'm Muslim or because I'm Asian or because I'm short, which is a joke. No, it's
Mm.
not a joke that I'm short, but it's a joke that anyone's told me that.
Right.
There was all these limitations, all these like, other people's perceptions that because you're this, you can't do that. And I know that I'm here to manifest millions, which to use to build schools and to help women, to help girls around the world, and to help boys with their emotional mastery and men. So I've always known this, and so I just came to a crossroads. I came to a crossroads when my heart and soul was like, you need to stop, you need to rest, you need to heal, you need to dive into this deeper place, and you need to just trust that you are supported. And so I spent about maybe 3 to 5 years really going deep into my own healing, and I was just a proper free spirit. I left education, I sidestepped, and I just travelled around the UK. I was going through something really, really difficult, which required for me to actually be in my own space, to heal and to really go deep, deep, deep. And I followed the breadcrumbs, my stepping stones, and I
Mm.
asked this question. I said to the universe, I said to God, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to come back into teaching, but maybe the context has changed. So the purpose is still the same, but the context has changed. And that is exactly
Mm.
what happened. So then I trained as a master practitioner of NLP.
Mm.
And that just kind of added on to my 2 degrees, my teaching experience, and all of that work. And I was just ready. I was ready to be my own boss and to just create my own financial freedom. And I was just ready to unleash my creativity, and just help as many people as I possibly can. and it's been an amazing journey. It's been very up and down, and I'm really like I said, I'm in this kind of contemplation space at the moment, and I realized that I lost my connection to source. I let go of that to focus on the external, to focus on social media. And I've never really been into metrics, like external metrics, but I did fall into that whole thing of likes and this, that, and the other, and the numbers. And, I would have people coming to me in the business world saying, you haven't got that many numbers, you don't have such a big audience, you don't have this, you don't have that. And the thing is, like, when you lose your connection to your personal power, it's easy for other people who have got those kind of mindsets to get in, isn't it? And to get into your mind.
To manipulate, really, yeah.
Yes, and exactly. And because I was already going through quite a vulnerable situation, it was just one of those things where I let those voices get in. And I'm going to be completely honest, I'm still going through the process of like forgiving myself for that. And, and I'm about 9 months into it now. But there's like, more insights every single day of the things that, the situations that I let myself get caught up in, and I lost, that focus on my original intention. And the beautiful thing is, this is human journey, soul journey, and I'm starting to see the the results, you could say, in some ways. I'm starting to see the shifts or the manifestations through my platform, and that's really exciting me now. That's just like, wow, I'm back on track, and I ain't ever giving up my connection to God for anyone, no matter what. Not happening.
I love that. I would never give my connection to God for anything either. This journey is such a trip, and if you're not connected to God, I guess you're focused on the external, which is only going to be stressful, and kind of all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Let us know, if somebody wants to work with you, and they're I know you got some kind of programs coming up and events, and so fill us in on what's going on.
Yeah, so I've got loads of different programs. So I've got a one-to-one mentorship. I've got masterminds coming up as well, which I'm really excited about. So I've got 2 masterminds called the Magnetic Soul Mastermind and the Leading Edge Mastermind. And these are like group coaching programs where we really go deep into, with Magnetic Soul, we go deep into manifestation and, calling in your desires and collapsing time and the quantum field and the energetics and all of that good stuff. And then the Leading Edge, you like?
Speaking my language.
Man, yes. That's where all the fun and games are, not down here watching TV and,
Right. Exactly.
And then there's Leading Edge, which is really where we go deep into self-love and self-worth and uncovering, who you really truly are and what your path is in life and what you want your life and business to look like as well. And I do this thing where, I create masterclasses, very often, and digital courses, and, I offer those to my audience. Just so they can keep on moving forward. We've talked quite a bit about, that stagnancy and disempowerment and feeling unfulfilled. And I think people forget, that they have the answers within them. And when you hear that nugget coming through someone's heart and soul and it lands with yours, that's worth it. It's like the aha moment is so worth it. Like the goosebumps are so worth it because it's the next piece. It's the next piece of your evolution. It's the next piece of your soul growth. And right. So, I work with ambitious, driven, soul-led women who really want to connect deep within and show up and do what they're here to do and live a life where, where it comes to that moment where our flame dies out, we can look back and say, I did everything I came here to do. I became who I was really here to be, and I tapped into my potential. I didn't just scratch the surface of it. I tapped into it, and I manifested everything that I was here to manifest. So if that lands for anybody listening, definitely get in touch with me, through my website, which is leilakhanauthor.com, or you can send me a message on social media. Just let me know that you came from Vic's podcast, and we can definitely set up a conversation and see where the right fit is for you.
Amazing. And you can see all the information also in the description.
Amazing.
Leila, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It was so much fun. I love kind of getting into all these breadcrumbs, and you're such a soulful person. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been amazing. I love this conversation. It was so much fun.
Absolutely. And to everyone else, catch us next week for the next episode, and hit up Leila, and definitely get her books. So until next time.
Ciao.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Just wanted to come on here and share with you, if you don't know already, I've written a book called Rolling With It, Lessons Learned While Sitting Down. Rolling With It is the same name as this podcast. Check it out on Amazon. I go deep into my journey from having my accident back in July 29, 2006. And really that being the catalyst to my spiritual journey. And I go deep, and I'm raw, and I'm real, and I share with you all my experiences and all the things I've learned along the way. So definitely check it out, guys. Rolling With It, Lessons Learned While Sitting Down. Have a great rest of your day.